case shifting gears a little bit to the absolute political stunt from Kamala Harris and the left, up in arms over Donald Trump going to the Arlington National Cemetery in front of the Tomb of the Unknown last week to honor the 13 U.S. service members, 12 Marines, one sailor that died in the disastrous withdrawal of Afghanistan at Abbey. They're trying to say he broke the law and that Donald Trump shouldn't have gone there. They even cited, oh, there's this law. There's not a law. It's a guide. It's a guideline. And oh, by the way, those Gold Star families wanted Trump there.
This absolutely enraged me for many reasons. First and foremost, Gold Star families deserve to be able to show up to Arlington National Cemetery and honor their children, their loved ones, their husbands, their wives, fathers, mothers who died in service to this nation. And they should be able to do so without being made political pawns by the very military service that their loved ones served in. And that is exactly what happened. We had the 3-year anniversary last week of the absolute chaotic, unnecessarily catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan. 13 American GIs died, and the families invited President Trump to Arlington National Cemetery to lay a wreath. He showed up. It turns out the Army, the cemetery, was trying to prevent him from showing up. Speaker Johnson had to get involved for him to even be able to get there. Can you imagine that the Speaker of the House had to get involved for a former commander-in-chief to show up to help lay a wreath at the request of Gold Star families? That is how partisan, how nasty, how vindictive our current Defense Department has become, and it trickles all the way down to the management of Arlington National Cemetery. The families ask him, after he lays the wreath, to go over to the section where their loved ones are interred. They ask him if he will take some pictures with them. And at this point, we don't know exactly what happened. The cemetery claims that a Trump staffer shoved an Arlington staffer. We weren't there. We don't know what happened. I know Trump's camp denies it. And based on my experience with the Army, I'm inclined to be critical of anything the Army spokesman claim on things like this. But let's say hypothetically, let's say that maybe it's true that there was a little bit of a shove match between a couple of lower-level staffers. That's not something that you make into a national incident, and that's exactly what the Public Affairs Office at Arlington National Cemetery did. Carrie Meeker is the name of the PAO who runs that shop, and they printed up a press release that was released by the Department of the Army's Office of Chief of Public Affairs stating that there was an altercation between staffers and basically clutching pearls and virtue signaling that the cemetery should be above all this, and making the inference that the Trump campaign was there doing partisan political activity, which is by no means the case at all. And this really surprised me, Kristian, because I actually did a fellowship at the Office of the Chief of Public Affairs several years ago when I was stationed in Washington, D.C. And what I can tell you about that office is it does not want to make news. The people who work in that office do everything they can to keep the Army out of the news. They do everything they can to respond to as few press inquiries as possible, and they do everything they can to not make any waves at all. This was a deliberate attempt at making a wave. It was a deliberate attempt at embarrassing the Trump campaign. It was false. It was malicious. It was weaponizing the vision of Arlington National Cemetery now as a political prop, as a political tool. And it dishonored those 13 Gold Star families, at least 8 of which have since come out and defended President Trump and have castigated the Army for how it treated them on that day. I got to tell you, Kristian, as a former public affairs officer, as a veteran of Afghanistan, I found this outrageous. I find this unprofessional, and I am deeply, deeply embarrassed for the public affairs career field